What if I told you that you could reduce or completely eliminate your mortgage or rent payments in a matter of weeks? It's not a fantasy. It's a proven strategy called house hacking. With rent and housing prices higher than ever, most people feel trapped, having all of their money go towards housing without ever seeing a return. But look, it doesn't have to be that way. As someone who's currently house hacking and has been ever since 2012, while also showing others how to unlock financial freedom through creative real estate strategies, I know how powerful it can be. In this video, you'll discover what house hacking is, how it stacks up against renting, and why it's a game changer for saving money. And most importantly, how you can start living mortgage-free sooner than you think. And no, you don't need to be a real estate expert or have a ton of money to get started. This strategy works for everyday people just like you and me. Stick around because what you're about to learn could change the way you think of housing forever. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard. I'm a Canadian real estate agent and I'm passionate about helping people like you achieve financial freedom through smart and simple real estate strategies. If you like that and you want to stay up to date, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. So let's start off with the basics. What exactly is house hacking? Because I'm going to guess that many, if not all of you, like the idea of living mortgage free or at least reducing your overall housing expenses so that you can be saving more money each year. Well, house hacking is a strategy where you use your living situation to significantly reduce or even eliminate your housing costs altogether. The idea is simple. Turn your home or the place that you rent into a source of income. Now, this isn't a revolutionary idea that I came up with. It's been done for centuries, just hasn't always been called house hacking. And how do you go about doing this? Just depends on your current housing situation. So for starters, if you are renting a place, maybe you have an extra room that you could have a good friend or family member live with you. If you don't have the extra space, you can always upsize from your 1 or 2 bedroom rental unit to an entire house with 4, 5, 6 bedrooms where now you can rent out all the additional rooms. For those of you who own a place, you got a couple options just depending on what you own. For condos and townhome owners, it's pretty much the same where you just rent out the extra rooms or space you have. For detached homes, there's usually a little bit more flexibility. You can rent out a room, maybe the house has a basement suite or some extra space you can rent out. Currently in the market, what I see happen the most and who I usually help are these two situations. The first situation is where the parents who have a bunch of equity in their current home sell it and buy together with their kids where the parents are now mortgage free because the kids are paying for the mortgage at the new home. The home usually has 2 or even 3 living spaces so that both the parents and the adult son or daughter's family can both live in the home comfortably, which is substantially better than the adult kids just paying rent and not building any long-term wealth. The second scenario I see a lot is parents who use their home as leverage to buy another home with their kids. Now, in most cases, the situation won't lead you to being mortgage free right away, but depending on what you buy, it could have a rental suite which would pay off a good portion of your mortgage. Then when you fast forward 5 to 10 years, your net worth will be substantially higher as you have 2 homes appreciating in value over those years. Again, you're not paying someone else's mortgage, which is a huge win. The beauty of house hacking is its flexibility. It works for renters and homeowners alike, and it's one of the more creative ways to save money on housing, as that is and will always be the biggest expense you have in your life. Now that you know what house hacking is, I want to show you a quick comparison, just expanding on some of the examples I just shared, seeing exactly how much you'd be saving versus renting. Now, the stat I'm about to share with you, maybe you've heard it before, but it just completely blew my mind. And it's really another reason why I'm so passionate about these strategies and trying to help you save money. The stat states that the average renter pays over $130,000 in rent in just 5 years. And that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is if you were to rent your entire life, factoring in inflation and annual rent increases, that number skyrockets to $2.7 million. I don't know about you, but that's a ton of money gone, wasted, never to be seen again. So let's get into the numbers and show you how this strategy breaks down. I'm going to be doing rent comparisons on 3 of the most common situations out there. So there's a good chance you'll fall into one of these examples. First example is you're living on your own. Maybe you're in a basement suite, coach house, or even a condo, and you're paying the entire rent yourself. As for what you are paying each month, obviously, I don't know exactly how much you are paying, but my go-to resource for rental rates is rentals.ca. If you've ever heard of it and it's something you'd like to stay up to date on, just go check it out. Some good information. With that said, rental.ca states that the nationwide average for a one bedroom is $19.04 a month. Now, the thought behind this strategy is that you'd move into a bigger place and rent out each of the rooms to other close friends and or family members, splitting the housing costs. Comparing that to the nation's average for a 3-bedroom rental unit at $26.76 a month, which would be $892 a person. After doing some quick math, if you were to move into the 3-bedroom and rent out the other 2 units, you'd be saving a total of $12,144 in the first year. In over 5 years, you'd save $60,720. Not too bad considering that's a change you can make relatively easy. Now, the living rent-free hack on this, which it's not for everyone, is you rent an entire 4, 5, or even a 6-bedroom house, and then fill up the rooms with friends, family, or even strangers, charging each person just enough to cover your portion in rent so that you don't have to pay anything. What I will say to this though is if you don't want to be the one responsible for setting something like this up, you can always find a room to rent and still get significant savings. The second situation that I see out there who can benefit from this strategy are those who have a family with 1 or 2 kids. You're probably renting a top half of a house, maybe it's a 3-bedroom condo or a townhome unit, which is costing you around $2,676 in rent according to rentals.ca. I'm willing to bet that there's a good chance you know of another family in the exact same boat as you. What you'd want to do is find a complete house with preferably 2 suites or a house big enough that has 2 separate living areas, 2 separate sleeping areas, and then you just share the kitchen, splitting in all the housing expenses. Rentals.ca doesn't have this data, so we're gonna have to find this ourselves. If this is you, do your own research in your own area. But as for the area that I live in, it averages around $4,500 per month, which is $2,250 per family. And then after some quick math, in the first year, each family would be saving a total of $5,112. And then over the 5 years, they'd each save $25,560. Not too bad. Now, the third situation, which I've been personally working with the most lately, is parents who are helping their adult kids who have families of their own get into the real estate market. And this happens by the parents selling their home and buying a place together with their adult kids that has room for both of their families. To figure out the cost difference between the parents owning and the adult kids renting versus if you both lived under one roof, it's not rocket science. It's literally just an Excel spreadsheet that I've made breaking down all of the costs of each situation and then just comparing them. You'll need information on what the parents are paying each month for their house and then how much the adult kids are spending on renting. Then figuring out the total breakdown or cost of that home that both of you would be living in. If you want access to this spreadsheet, it's nothing fancy, I promise you, but I'll put a link in the description where you can access it. Now, the living free mortgage hack on this is the parents sell their house and pool the funds with their adult kids to buy 2 duplexes that both have 2-bedroom suites in them. Parents and the adult kids would live in one side and you would rent out the entire other side of the duplex, where the rent generated from it would cover the cost of your mortgage. And the bonus is now you have 2 homes appreciating in value instead of just one. Now, after going through this breakdown, you might be thinking it's too complicated. I don't want to share a space. I could never do that. The list goes on. Don't worry, I'm going to cover all of that shortly. But let's first talk about how you can actually get started, like today. And so first thing, like anything in life, is you need to review your goals. Is owning a home a desire of yours? Or if you own a home, is the dream to be mortgage free sooner rather than later? If it is, you're in the right spot and I'm here to help. And if not, well, I'd encourage you to think 20, 30, 40 years down the road from now. Because I can almost bet that the idea of listening to your landlord, following their rules, never really having a sense of feeling completely secure in the place that you're living might just get to some of you later on in life. I'm just saying, think about it. Next thing is understand that you are going to have to sacrifice a little now for a better tomorrow. What do I mean by that? Well, you are going to have to do hard things today. Maybe that's share a home, live with people who you may not overly like, give up some sort of personal space so that you can set yourself up for an easier future. Because trust me, I get it. As someone who's been house hacking since 2012 and to this day still currently doing it, there are things you are going to have to put up with. It's not always going to be easy. Though when you think of your goals and the life you'll have later on, it becomes worth it. So if you're still with me, this is where I get a little more tactical on how to start. If you're renting, I'll start with you first. Evaluate your finances and housing situation. Figure out if you are living in the most cost-effective place possible. Because remember, your housing expense is and always will be your biggest expense. Think about some of the examples I gave earlier. Can you change up your living situation so that your housing expense is the cheapest it can be? Once you're there, keep doing that until your income and down payment are big enough so you can afford your own place. And just for context, this took me 7 years to save up enough money for a down payment and have the income to support the mortgage so that I could afford my own place. This is just to show that this doesn't happen overnight. If you can't wait the 7 years or you have something else going on in your life, the only other way you can speed this up is talk to your parents. See if they'd entertain the idea of selling their home and buying a place with you, or potentially using the equity in their home to help you buy a place of your own where they would become co-owners. I mention parents because this is the most common partnership, but it can really be anyone that you trust, as this is a great way just to limit the amount of money going to rent, and this can even help your parents become mortgage free as you be the one paying the mortgage now. At least that's how I would structure it. Now these next steps are for those who currently own. This is what I'd be looking into. It's a similar approach to renting where you want to see if there's anything you can change up in your living situation so that your housing expense is the cheapest it can be. Maybe that's renting out an extra room or a space you have. I remember growing up and my parents had foreign exchange students in the house. It was a little different, but it's just something they did to make ends meet. It could be putting in a basement suite in your home or potentially building a coach house on your property. Another option is maybe you have friends that own, where selling and pooling your resources together could result in reducing your overall housing costs, while also having a higher home appreciation in the long run. You definitely have options. The key with all of this is just to start small. You don't need to drastically change your life right this second. Even renting out just a room can make a big difference. The key is to take that first step and just start planning today. And as always, if you want advice on your specific situation, just shoot me a text at this number, or you can book a call with me using the link in the description, whatever you're more comfortable with. I'm happy to share my opinion. Now for the fun part, addressing the common objections. Because let's be real, you have them. I know house hacking might sound intimidating, so let's address some of the more common concerns that I hear out there. First off, I don't want to share my space. That's understandable. You can still house hack by renting out separate units, a basement suite, or even a second unit, so you maintain some privacy. Though the whole idea with house hacking is that you are sharing some aspect of your space. You'll have to get used to it, just saying. I can't afford to buy a property, therefore I cannot house hack, and that's okay. Because as I mentioned earlier, house hacking isn't just for buyers. Renting a larger home or space and splitting the cost with the family or friends can significantly reduce your housing and living expenses. As mentioned before, the goal is to reduce your housing costs to as low as practical. Then save as much money as you can so that you can eventually buy a place on your own or with another person. Next is, it sounds too complicated. I get it. It might seem overwhelming, but like anything new, at first, it seems like a lot. Though with the right planning and professional support, house hacking can be simple and incredibly rewarding. The way I look at it is this: you don't climb a mountain in one big step. It doesn't happen. It takes thousands of small steps and occasional breaks to get there. So in the same fashion, start taking manageable steps towards the goal. Whatever your situation, there's likely a way to make house hacking work for you. The key being, do you want it to work? Because there can and always will be a reason for it not to work. So if you are in fact willing to make it work, I want to tell you why now is the perfect time to start. First, rental prices in Canada are continuing to rise. It's happening everywhere, making renting less appealing and more expensive, which would result in even bigger savings for those who decide to start now. At the same time, interest rates are stabilizing, which creates more opportunity for buyers to enter the market. On top of that, house hacking is becoming more popular, but it's still a relatively untapped strategy. Starting now puts you ahead of the trend and lets you take full advantage of the benefits. And if you're still fighting me, I'll leave you with this. And this doesn't just apply to house hacking. There will always be a reason to wait. Challenge, a doubt, or an excuse whispering that it's not the right time. But those obstacles are just the stories we tell ourselves to stay where it's safe. Because the truth is, the perfect moment to start rarely comes. And the progress only starts when you decide to move forward anyway. So take that first step. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And your future self will thank you. If you're now thinking it's time to buy a home where you can house hack, I'd encourage you to do a little more homework first. What do I mean? Well, I want you to understand the full cost of home ownership and how it compares to renting before jumping in. It's a mistake I see all too often. So watch this video right here where I break down the complete cost of home ownership and give you an easy calculation to see if it makes sense. And while you watch that, I'm gonna go fly some drones.